Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna, welcome to our channel, Bhagavad-gita, here it is, where we are reading, surprise, Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavad-gita, here it is. We are reading the edition, translated and commented by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Labanga Latika. We have reached the third chapter, we're somewhere in the middle. It is called Karma Yoga, and we get a very good understanding of action. And there are many ways to understand that word. And I'm reading text 23. Yadiyahang navarteyang jatu karmanyatandritaha mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. For if I, so Krishna is speaking, if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Purport. In order to keep the balance of social tranquility for the progress of spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. Yes, we find it sometimes a little difficult to understand Krishna, and that is not surprising, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the cause of all causes. Everything comes from him, everything is within him, and he also enters into the heart of all the living entities. So how can our intelligence wrap itself around such a personality? But he has some specific purpose when he comes to this world. He wants to establish the principles of religion. He wants to protect the devotees. He wants to annihilate the demons, is the words used. But what that means is we are all in this material world. And Krishna is respecting our desire to come to this world and try to forget him. At the same time, he has a purpose in giving us a path out of this world and back to the spiritual world. And especially this chapter comes into that. These instructions, they come on many different levels. For those who are mostly, strongly identified in their bodily identification, strongly desirous of enjoying that platform of this world, there are dharma, there are religious principles there, so that we can make some gradual progress. We will hear more about it here, but Krishna also indicates that even for a person who is spreading that knowledge of Krishna and trying to encourage the others to come to the platform, we're not supposed to disturb people, because that doesn't accomplish anything. So Krishna is very practical here. We have the law of karma, it's very practical. It keeps things turning in this world. And we have, different levels of spiritual life, and everyone can step onto the level that is most I don't want to say comfortable, but practical to step onto. Because if we want to go completely against our own nature, it's not going to work. We see that sometimes people who come to our Krishna consciousness movement, they want to take up spiritual life, and they go all out and they try to be very strong. But that strength, if it doesn't have, a deep core, becomes very brittle. And the same persons that were very strict and strong and forceful can later become a little despondent and a little frustrated and a little burnt out. And spiritual life doesn't make us burnt out, because to be burnt out is a function of the modes of passion and ignorance. The soul engaged in loving service to Krishna never tires of it. But the conditioned soul, still identifying with this body, cannot ignore the fact that we're in this body. So we find a level, we cannot ignore our own desires. Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, does not aim at overruling our material impulses. It aims at cultivate the spiritual desires inside. So some people start on that level. We do our dharma, we regulate our lives, we don't create any disturbances, and in this way we're connected. Some start on another level. We will hear more about that: knowledge, meditation, different yogic processes. And bhakti is the ultimate goal of yoga. So Krishna is showing that example. He's coming on one hand to actually help us when we are starting to have a desire to find something more complete, more authentic, more real. That's what everyone's looking for, something that's authentic. And authentic doesn't just mean, gritty and handmade and and so on. It means that which corresponds to reality, who we are, what reality is, and that their spiritual life is a big part of it. But we cannot enter on a level where we won't be able to maintain ourselves. So Krishna shows the example. Krishna gives all this Vedic principle. Krishna invites us in that way. And when he comes here, he has that purpose of showing his pastimes, because how can we turn back to him if we don't know about him? As soon as we hear a little bit about Krishna, everything about him is so attractive. And how could we hear about him if he didn't come here and display his pastimes? Also, he is showing an example of spiritual life, and sometimes he's not showing an example. Sometimes he's acting as God and doing whatever he wants to do. Please continue reading into the Srimad Bhagavatam. Our Srila Prabhupada took the 10th canto that describes Krishna's pastimes in this world and wrote a summary study. We call it Krishna book. And you can read that. You can hear more about Krishna. It's all very wonderful. But here he's speaking about this specific aspect of how he's showing an example. And I want to read the next text also. Text 24. Utsideyurime loka na kuryan karma ched sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyamima pradyaha. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of created unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Purport. Varnashrankara is unwanted population, which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulation by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. So there are many things in these verses and purports. Varna Shankara means unwanted population. So if somebody is born and he's not wanted in his family, in his society, in his life, this creates a very negative impression on that person, and it creates a great suffering for that person, and it also creates people who are very difficult to cooperate with. If we have a society, all the members of society, they have to find a way to coexist, to support each other while still being different and doing different things. But somebody who never felt welcomed and appreciated, and even a further understanding is, of course, when we bring a child into the world, we're actually asking that child to come and take part in our family, because that's what we want. We want to have that child, and we want to give that child the opportunity to grow up as a human being and have have every opportunity to be happy in this world and be able to also get out of this world by becoming very Krishna conscious and very spiritual. Children who come to this world without that strong welcome, they are often at a disadvantage for themselves. And if society is the balance in society is that persons who are considered Varnashankar as unwanted, if they dominate in the society, then the whole society will become very unstructured, and there will be problems for everybody. So we don't hear about that much. This is an unknown word in our Western dictionary, but Krishna brings it up, so we talk about it. So Krishna, he deals with these rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity. It's like if you have children and the children are a little bit smaller, when you cross the road, you go to the proper crossing place, you wait for the light to turn green, you look in both directions, and you show a proper example. Although as a grown-up, I know personally, when I'm alone, I'll cross the street anywhere, as long as there are no cars. But when my children were small and we walked together, I would always walk very properly, because I want to give them, first you have to learn the rules, first you have to understand the rules, then maybe you can break the rules also. Of course, I'm not encouraging anyone to break Krishna's rules, because they are very practical and very perfect. But what I'm saying, also what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad-gita, is that a very self-realized person who is on a spiritual platform does not need to concern himself very strictly with the detailed, minute rules and regulation in this world, whereas other people may need that platform in order to be happy, stable, and able to find a steady level of spiritual advancement also. So that's how Krishna is concerned and kind to us. And that's when we understand the Vedic setup of dharmas, of rules and regulation, we understand that it's a very complex picture. It's not that, if you're religious, you do like that. Because different groups on different levels and with different cultural identification and, qualities, they can enter on different levels. They can enter on different systems. But all these systems are contained in a whole, and as a whole, they are all helpful in our spiritual path, and they are also helpful in creating a society where everyone can live. Following and imitation, that's the next point, are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33, text 30-31 affirms, Naitat samacharit jatu manasapi yanishvaraha vinashyat yacharan modhyad jatharudrobdhijang visham ishvaranang vacha satyang tatheva charitang kvachit teshang yatsva vacho yuktang buddhimang tat samacharet. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. So, these are important points. Krishna will give us certain instructions. He will also show a certain example, but he will also do things that are out of our range. At one point, he lifted a mountain, the Govardhan mountain, on his left hand, the little finger of his left hand, and the whole village took shelter under there to take shelter from that rainstorm of Lord Indra that I will not discuss very much here, but it's a very fantastic thing, and nobody can imitate it. Who can lift a mountain? Krishna can do that. So we have to understand the difference between imitation and following. We also have to understand that it's not I'm from the West, and sometimes we have this kind of pride that rules are meant to be broken, and who's going to tell me what to do? And of course, that's our choice. We don't have to follow any of Krishna's instructions. But when we come to the point where we're actually concerned with the best possibility to live our lives, we can see that Krishna, he actually knows these things, so we can trust him and follow his example. Yeah, and Lord Shiva also, at one point in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there was the churning of the milk ocean and some poison came out, and that was very dangerous for everyone concerned. So Lord Shiva, who is very powerful, he drank that poison, and now he has a blue throat. And he could do that. We could not do that, so we don't imitate that, even to a lesser degree, by taking other kinds of poison. We should always consider the position of the Ishvaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishvaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. But if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, I don't know pronunciation, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo-devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Raslila or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful by simply follow their instructions, nor should one try to occupy their posts without qualifications. There are so many so-called incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Yes, these things are going on, and therefore we bring them up so we can make the intelligent choice, because Krishna consciousness, it is practical. It is not a question of creating some impossible ideal, some utopia, and anything that doesn't live up to our utopia, we will reject it. It is also not a question of giving up and just lean back and thinking, well, I'll enjoy to my best ability because there is anyway no perfection. We are in this material world. Krishna is coming here, actively coming here, giving us that example of his life, giving us that information through the Vedas, and here particularly in the Bhagavad-gita, giving us the opportunity to start up our spiritual life and to maintain that spiritual life, and thus make progress in the spiritual life in this human form of life. And yeah, that's quite wonderful. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare